Welcome to Book Watch, the podcast where pages meet screens. I'm your host, Sarah-Daye. Each week, I'll be joined by amazing guests to dive deep into the world of adaptations, comparing beloved books with their cinematic counterparts. From faithful retellings to bold reimaginings, we'll break down what worked, what didn't, and what made each adaptation unforgettable. Whether you're a bookworm, a movie buff, or both, you are in the right place. So grab your bookmark, grab your popcorn, and let's watch some books. Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Book Watch. I have Krista, John with me tonight. We are covering Pride and Prejudice. And Krista, when I was telling you about the podcast and asked you if you wanted to do Pride and Prejudice with me, you were so excited and you said, yes, I am the girl for you for this book. And I want you to tell me why.
Well, it has been my favorite book for, at least the last 20 years. I think I read it for the first time when I was about 18. I'm going to be 38 this year. So it has been, actually, it's tied with Jane Eyre. I have a love for both Pride and Prejudice and Jane Eyre, but I have strong opinions on the film and BBC adaptation of it. So
which I know we're going to get into that discussion.
Yes. So I just love this book, and it has meant a lot to me over the years.
I love that. Well, without further ado, listeners, we will be covering both the 1995 show and the 2005 film adaptations of Pride and Prejudice. So the show was directed by Simon Langton and was adapted by Andrew Davies. The film was directed by Joe Wright and adapted by Deborah Mogic. And so we start off the conversations with our key themes, which I imagine is probably why this is one of your favorite books.
Yeah, well, all of Jane Austen's books have everyday people doing everyday things, and their stories have lasted through, all through time, and we still can appreciate the themes and the stories today. And that's probably what I love most about her writing. So everything that happens in the book is still powerful to people reading it today.
Yes, and I would say two of the main themes in Pride and Prejudice is in the title itself, which is Pride
Of
and
course, yep.
Prejudice, especially of that time. But it's evident in both of our main characters, both Darcy and Elizabeth, showcase both Pride and Prejudice. So talk to me a little bit about those two themes throughout the story and how the film and the show sort of touched on those themes.
Yeah, well, it's the classic enemies to lovers trope, right? And
Like the original.
right, yeah, it is the original. And yeah, they both show it in slightly different ways. Darcy's pride
Mhm.
in his social status, in his upbringing, lead him to judge Elizabeth and her family, of course, pretty harshly. And then Elizabeth's prejudice against Darcy, which is fueled by Mr. Wickham's lies, right? Which is one of my biggest problems with the film aspect, the film version. But that makes her blind to who Darcy really is. So you
Mhm.
couldn't have the book without the theme of Pride and Prejudice. There would be no story.
Yeah, exactly. And social class is another big theme of this book, and how Austen critiques the class system. Even back then, she was critiquing the system and the economic pressures on women to marry well. And the Bennet family, particularly, has so many different ways this plays out, which was really interesting to see. And we get more of that in the book and the show than we do the film because we're short on time. But talk to me a little bit about that theme of the book.
Yeah, I like the way it's portrayed actually in both of them. I think the film plays it up a little bit more, like with the pig running through the house. That's, they're really playing up the difference in the Bennet's life and their social class versus Darcy's. But I think overall, though, the outcome of it is that it doesn't matter where you come from. You know, love
Mhm.
is love is love. Um, Once they figure out each other's true character, and and then of course the other characters play into it too. I'm just talking about Elizabeth and Darcy, but
Right.
there's Lady Catherine. She's probably the most eccentric obvious version of the upper class, and she kind of drives me nuts. I think
Yeah.
she's probably one of my least favorite
Well,
characters. And
she
then
has the most pride and the most prejudice against
yeah,
other classes.
yeah, Bingley's sisters.
Oh, yes.
Yes. Their costumes in the BBC version make me laugh. They remind me of the ugly stepsisters from Cinderella.
Yes, that's a really good description of them.
Yeah. But it's to show the contrast between the two.
Yeah. Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely. And of course, love and relationships is throughout the entire book, as well as family and reputation. Again, the Bennet family and the reputation that they have, and how that impacts Jane and Elizabeth and their matches. And, how yeah, it just shows that how reputation and behavior affect not just individuals but the entire family as a unit.
Yeah. And I love how in the story we get to see all different types of love and relationships,
Mhm.
which makes it so that anyone can connect to it. You can find people that in almost every couple that you see throughout the story.
Yeah.
The Mr. and Mrs. Bennet, they're mismatched, total opposite personalities. That's really played up, I think, in the BBC one especially.
Yes, I think it is. We'll get into it when we talk about our cast, but the two Mr. Bennets are, I felt, very portrayed very differently in the two different adaptations. Um, so, let's before we dive into the characters, why do you think this story has lasted generations and been adapted so many times?
Yeah, I've been trying to think about that. I think so there were previous versions, right?
Mhm.
There were previous adaptations. I think there was one in the 40s. I think it was 1940, then there was one in the 80s. Um, and then the 95, the 2005, and now we're getting another one. I've
Yes.
I've been seeing. I think I don't know. It's just like I said earlier, it's a story that the themes and the characters are just timeless. It doesn't matter, even what time. I think you could set this in any time, and the themes and the
Yes.
relationships would still be something that we can all relate to. And
Yeah.
I think up until the 95 version, the ones that had been tried, I think there were also other like TV versions in the 50s, but nobody really did it justice. So that's, I think, why the 95 one was so different from anything that had been done before or has been done since. Um, so
Hmm.
they were really trying to stay true to Austen's writing and include everything,
Mhm.
every character, lots of dialogue just taken straight from the book. So I think it was time for something like that by 1995, and then you know 2005 was a blockbuster movie, right? So they were trying to make it more. I think some people didn't like the 95 one because it feels a little stiff.
Yes.
It's not as creative. So, but it made people be interested in the story. A
Mhm.
lot of people saw that maybe and hadn't even read the book, and then they went and read it. And I think the 2005 one did that even more. Most, like, you didn't read the book first, right? You saw that movie first,
Correct.
right?
Yes,
Yeah.
as much as my mom wanted me to read the book, I did not until this podcast.
Yeah. Well, there you go. Yeah. So I think it inspired every time they adapted it, it might inspired more people to read it. And
Exactly.
when you read it, you love it even more. And so I think people just kept trying to, get it right. And I think both birds we're talking about got something right. And I love that the 2005 one inspired more people I think it inspired more people in recent years than any of
Yeah.
the others to actually read the book.
Yeah,
And it
exactly, and
was
I feel like it's generational, like,
Mhm.
the 1995 was my mom's generation, I know that you like it, but then the Keira Knightley version was our generation, and now the next generation is getting their version, which I
right,
believe
yeah.
Amazon is the one producing the next Pride and Prejudice, and I think it's gonna be a show, so I'll have to have you
I like
back on to
yeah.
talk about that when that airs. But let's go ahead and dive into our key characters. We have a decent sized list. Oh, and I forgot. I'm so sorry, listeners. Obviously, we're talking about Pride and Prejudice by Jane Austen, which was written in 1813, which I think is probably one of my oldest books on the podcast to date. And I also like to share the audiobook because I am an audiobook listener. I listened to the narration by Rosamund Pike, who is in the film. So now, without further ado, we will start with Elizabeth Bennet.
Okay.
So we'll go through the characters one by one and have a discussion about each one. So Elizabeth Bennet in the show was played by Jennifer
Ehle.
Ehle. Okay, and
Mhm.
in the movie, she was played by Keira Knightley. So I
Yes.
know
You
you
want my
have
opinion?
yes, I know you have lots of thoughts on the show versus the movie, so let me have it.
Um, I I'm not gonna say that I love Jennifer Ehle as Elizabeth. I think she did a great job. It's just she's probably not what I what I picture Lizzie to look like, but Keira Knightley's maybe more what I think she physically would should look like, but
Okay.
I just think she was just too modern. And I know it was meant to be more modern and it's a
Mhm.
beautiful movie. Um, but she even just like her hairstyle, the way she's she's witty, like she's supposed to be witty and sharp towards others, but she's almost too like confident around for the time period of even how she like makes eye contact and speaks so strongly back at Darcy. It's done in like a too modern of a way where I think Jennifer Ehle matched that. She showed Elizabeth Bennet's like that she's witty, she's intelligent, but it was appropriate for the time period, the way she portrayed that. I think Keira Knightley felt more like I don't know.
Bold.
Yeah, that's a good word. Yeah, it's bold. Exactly. It was a little too bold for me. So
Yeah,
I
I
think
can see
Jennifer
that.
Ehle started it more with more like subtlety, I guess.
Yeah.
But it still conveyed the characterization of Elizabeth Bennet as being someone who's witty and intelligent.
Yeah. Yeah. I could agree with all of that. Again, I grew up basically on the movie, so it was hard for me to, when I was reading the book, picture anyone else but the movie characters. And then when I was
Yeah,
watching the show, get used to them. And I know we'll
yeah,
get more into this on our next character because
yeah.
there's a huge debate among all of Pride and Prejudice fans on who is your Mr. Darcy. So Colin Firth is Mr. Darcy in the show, and Matthew Macfadyen is our movie Darcy. Um, so I have to admit, I when we were first started talking about this, and you were like, "You're gonna love Colin," I was like, "Yeah, sure." And then even the
Do
first
you?
couple
Because I've been
episodes, I
waiting
was
a
like,
very long time to hear it.
the first couple episodes, I'm like, Matthew is still my Darcy, but Colin did grow on me by the end of the show. Now, do I choose Colin over Matthew? I'm not sure. I think I'm pretty torn at this point. I'd have to watch both again, maybe even read the book again. Again,
Yeah,
I've grew up on Matthew Macfadyen being the Darcy in my mind. So to and Colin, I've seen in so many other things. And I've always known he was Darcy, but I've never seen him as Darcy. So it's still very tough for me to imagine him as my Darcy. But I understand all of the Colin is my Darcy folks because I get it. I do. He was a very good Mr. Darcy.
yeah. I love Colin Firth, just like beyond Mr. Darcy. So I just love all of the classic movies that he's been a part of bringing to classic literature, I guess, that he's, Shakespeare
Mhm.
and as Mr. Darcy, I just love all the roles that he plays. So I guess I'm kind of biased towards him already. But I don't know. I just think he's a hard character to portray. I think
Mhm.
the first time you read the book, and I read the book before seeing any adaptation of it.
Mhm.
So I read it blind, not knowing anything about it. And like I hated Mr. Darcy at first. I was like, what is this about? Like why does everyone love Mr. Darcy, right? So and I think he gets that across really well. He shows his pride, and he is, you know, you don't like him at first, and you're not supposed to like him at first. Where
Hmm.
I think that Matthew Macfadyen has more, he's more comes off as like shy, not so much as being.
I can agree with that in the later part of the film when he starts talking to her more. I do see the shyness. I feel like I'm almost opposite of what you just said, because I feel like when we first meet Matthew Macfadyen's Darcy in the film, he is just very, "Ooh, I don't like this guy." He's very just dry and not fun, not even that, like, attractive at that point either.
Yeah,
But then as the conversations go on, I get the shyness. Um,
yeah,
but on my first impression of the show, that's how I felt Colin Firth was just shy, not really prideful. Whereas he's supposed to be just very off-putting at first.
yeah.
So it's interesting that we both
That
have
is, yeah. We have
opposite
opposite. I don't know.
opinions. Yeah. Well, and
Yeah,
that just means art is subjective.
yeah. It totally, yeah. I don't know. I just think, yeah, he comes off more as like socially awkward, maybe
Yes,
like,
yes,
you know,
socially awkward's a great word for him, and
yeah.
you're talking
But
about Matthew McFadyen, right?
yeah, yeah. But
Yes. Yeah, yeah,
Colin
yeah.
Firth is more like, I guess, more believable in his like. I don't know. I just think he comes off as being more controlled, and
Oh, control's a
do
good
you
word
know?
for him.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah.
Yes.
So I don't know. I that is just how my experience reading the book was, you know, and he's the one I think that portrayed that better. But
Well,
agree to
I
disagree.
will yes. It'll be fun to throw the new cast into the mix, and I know that we
Yeah,
have a Darcy and Elizabeth and a Mrs. Bennet. I just don't know who they are off the top of my head for this new production. So it'll be
yeah,
fun to throw them into the mix because also the new Mr. Darcy just seems so young to me. But I
yeah,
think that's because I'm older. So it's
yeah.
going
Well,
to be
but
hard
they
for
are
me to
supposed to be young. You
I
know,
know, yeah.
Keira Knightley was only, I think, 18 or 19 when she
Yes.
played Elizabeth Bennet, and that's actually how old Elizabeth Bennet is supposed to be. So they are supposed to be young. I think that is one thing that kind of bothers me about all the versions besides the 2005 is that they're all much older
Hmm.
than they actually are in the book. So I think that's common in film anyway. But yeah, I
Yeah.
think younger people might make
Yeah, so
sense.
we'll see. Yeah,
Yeah.
we'll see how this new adaptation I don't know about I'm pretty it's either Netflix or Amazon that's doing it. I think it's Amazon, and
Okay.
I have my hesitations, but we'll just have to see when that
Yeah.
time comes.
Well,
Um,
Colin Firth will always be my
I
Darcy.
know he will.
I'm jealous of the person that bought his white shirt. I sent you that article, right?
Right, there was yeah, it went for, like, a lot of money.
Yeah. Somebody auctioned off the shirt that he wore coming out of his pond at Pemberley.
Yeah, and that was a scene that stuck
Oh, yeah.
with me. And that's, like, the gift that we keep sending back and forth to each other now.
Yes.
Mr. Bennet is next. In the show, he was played by Benjamin with Rit I'm sorry, I have a speech
Whitrow?
impediment, and W's and R's really mess me up. So,
Whitrow?
Whitrow. I'm not gonna be able to say it.
Whitrow?
Mhm. And then in the movie, Donald Sutherland, the great Donald
Hmm.
Sutherland, plays Mr. Bennet. And I have to say, Donald Sutherland is my Mr. Bennet. I can't be swayed
Oh,
otherwise.
I love Donald Sutherland as an actor again, but I still like the BBC Mr. Bennett. He just, I don't know, he just comes off, he has more of a connection with Elizabeth, I think,
Oh,
and
I
he,
disagree.
I
And
don't know.
we knew this
Yeah,
was going to be our conversation
I
going into
know.
this, listeners, because you knew the 1995 and I had never seen it. I grew up with the movie, and so we knew we were going to
Yeah,
have sort of um an opposite view of this going into it. But I will say I did enjoy the 1995 a lot.
yeah.
But please continue about your conversation about Mr. Bennett.
No, that's it. I just like him and Lizzie's connection in that one more. And it's not that I don't like it in the movie. It doesn't there he Donald Sutherland does not bother me as Mr. Bennett. So I'm not like anti Donald Sutherland. I just slightly enjoy the BBC version. I just think his
He's a lot more
tone, like I don't know, he's
refined
just
in the
yeah,
BBC.
I think the tone and yeah, refined is a good word. I think he's fun. It's funny, but he still conveys that even though he's his connection with Lizzie, I think shows through. He still portrays that like emotional distance from everyone else, and
Sure.
yeah, yeah. So I think and again, Donald Sutherland, still all of it just comes off a little bit more like modern for me.
Mhm.
Um, and I think it lost some of the subtle humor. I think
Sure.
that's missing from the movie a lot. Like Jane Austen's books are full of subtle humor,
Mhm.
and I think they all do a really good job with that in a better job with it in the show
Well,
version.
the show is a much more faithful adaptation, like line to line, right?
Yes. Yep.
And then also, I think off air when we first started talking about this, you had mentioned a lot of the film was just historically inaccurate, like the costuming. You already mentioned her hairstyle, so
Yeah.
I'm sure. So for me, the movie is what I knew of Pride and Prejudice, and
Yeah.
even of that Regency era, was my first introduction to really that era. There was not a
Hmm.
lot of other media set in that time. So that
So do
doesn't
you know the
affect
movie
me.
set earlier, right?
Oh, no.
The costumes from the movie are more from the 1790s. So
Wow.
pre-Regency. So their gowns have a different like waistline and their hairstyles are totally off. Like they're not accurate even to 1790s, but their costumes are different time period. But she wrote the first version of the book in the 1790s is what I think I remember. So I don't know if they were trying to just distinguish it from the
Mhm.
BBC.
I'm
And
sure.
when she was writing her first draft of it, she may have had that style in her head, of what they would have been wearing. So I think there's probably two reasons why they did that. So that, I mean, I don't know. The hairstyles are interesting because I mean, it doesn't have to do with Mr. Bennett so much, but the girls,
Right.
they, I don't know. I feel like Keira Knightley's hair at the ball. I don't know. It looks like I just picture
I know
that
exactly what
those
you're talking
curls
about.
in her
Yes.
hair look almost like 2005 butterfly clips or
Yes.
something in her hair.
Yeah.
Although they did decorate, they would put decorative things in their hair. So I think I'm just connecting it with like
Yeah.
the time when it came out. But anyway, that's off track from. We can talk about the costumes
Well, the
later.
reason why I brought costumes up was because the costume Mr. Bennet is dressed so differently in the show than
Oh
the
yeah,
film, and I'm
yeah.
wondering if that has a little bit to do with how he's portrayed, because, not that he's more uptight, but like you were saying, Donald's portrayal of Mr. Bennet just seems a little bit more, like you said, modern and
He's a little warmer. I think
easygoing. Yes, warmer
yeah,
is a good
yeah,
word.
yeah. But in the book, he's not really like he's pretty awful in the book. Like he's awful to his wife in the book. Like it's pretty bad. They cut a lot of that out in the movie, I think, because it's almost like hard to listen. It would be hard to listen to or
Hmm.
watch someone saying the things that he says to his wife in the book on screen. Yeah, so he definitely
Okay.
comes off, I think, as a warmer, gentler
Mhm.
version.
Well, even in the show, I don't think that he's as bad as the book is making it
No.
sound. I still had a hard time reading this, like, it's just a different style book that I'm used to reading, and so I
Yeah.
would listen to the group of chapters and then watch the episode of the BBC and then go back to
Okay. Yeah.
the, book. So I would like one day to sit down and maybe even annotate this book, because listening to an audio, no matter what you're doing, is going to be different experience than actually sitting down and reading the book. So I think I missed a little bit of that from the book, because I still thought that Benjamin's Mr. Bennet, wasn't mean. He's drier than Donald's
Yeah.
Bennet, but, um He's just more refined, I thought. And like
Yeah.
it's still that dry humor that you were talking about, like, oh, I'm very well acquainted with your nerves. They've been my best companion for 20 years, or something along those lines.
Yeah.
I think
That's
that
a
line is
direct
in
line
both.
from the book. Yeah. Yep.
Yes. So things like that, which he's just kind of like joking around with her, in the family.
Yeah.
Because they all kind of know Mrs. Bennet is a character.
She is.
Speaking of Mrs. Bennet,
Yes.
in the show, she's played by Alison Steadman, and in the movie, she's played by Brenda Blethyn.
So I have to say, Alison Steadman is one of my favorite British actresses. She's in one of my favorite shows of all time, Gavin and Stacey. If you've never watched it, it's one of the best shows ever made. Um, it's a Welsh family and an English family, kind of like the clash of the cultures. And
Oh,
Gary's, my
uh-huh.
husband's Welsh, so it's like the iconic Welsh English culture clash. And she
Mhm.
plays the English kid's mom. And so I have known her as that character for like a very long time. And so I just love her. And I think her Mrs. Bennet is definitely over the top. It's more over the top, I think, than even in the book, but it does bring, I just think it's hilarious the way she does
Yes.
it. So
Well, I do
I
prefer her.
yeah, I
Yeah.
think it's different than the book. I will say it's a little bit more than how she comes off in the book, but I do like how she did it. I think it's total social satire,
Yes. Well, and I think
social
they're both
satire
pretty
at its
over the
best.
top, but I think
Yeah,
she's one of the ones I do prefer right away, preferred her over the
yeah,
movie version. Not that there's anything wrong with Brenda's version of Mrs. Bennet, but
yeah,
I don't know, she just stuck out to me. I really did. Maybe I have to check out the show you're talking about because I
yeah.
really
It's so
did
good.
like her a lot. So, do you have anything more to say about Mrs. Bennet before we move on to our next character?
No, no, I don't think so. I just think she probably really annoys some people. I think
Yes.
Alison Steadman. I think because it's
Either
so
one,
much
honestly. I
that.
think the character just annoys people.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. But I don't know. I think the movie one is a little bit there's a little bit lower energy in that role, which might make people appreciate that one more.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Jane Bennett is next. In the show, she's played by
Hmm.
Susanna Harker, and in the movie, she's played by Rosamund Pike, who is my audiobook narrator. And I personally like, and I don't know if it's just my bias from the movie, but I do like Rosamund Pike's version of Jane a lot more than I liked Susanna's.
Yeah, she is the one character I really, really liked Rosamund Pike's take on Jane. I think she is beautiful.
Yes.
She looks like almost luminous on the screen, which is how you think of Jane,
Yes.
how she's
Yeah.
supposed to be. And I think she's really good in that role. And I think she has a chemistry with Bingley too in the movie,
Yes.
which
Yeah.
is which is nice. Yeah, I think the BBC one, I feel bad for her a little bit because I think she's beautiful too, but I think that the hairstyle at that period is just
Oh,
not
yes.
great. And it makes her just look a little more severe. Like it was a
Yes.
severe
Mhm.
hairstyle. And did I think I read somewhere that she was pregnant through the
Oh,
show.
really?
Yeah,
Wow.
and I don't know, I don't know, she just doesn't fit the look
Well,
of
going
what
back
you
to her
think she would look
hair,
like. Yeah.
yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
Going and her hair just felt like it was very, very tight, and I think I was
Hmm.
distracted by that a lot of the
Yeah.
time.
No, the
Um,
hair is distracting.
yes.
Yeah.
But I agree with what you're saying about Rosamund Pike is that she's glowing. She really does stand out in that entire film as really
Yeah.
a bright light, and I think that's why Mr. Bingley is so attracted to her. And I think that Rosamund Pike really was well casted.
Yeah. Yeah. I think Susanna Harker is still, she does the sweetness. She's
Yes.
graceful. She's reserved. I don't think I have anything wrong with how she portrays Jane. I think it's just, I don't know. And like I said, I think she's very pretty and she's beautiful. I just think the way Rosamund Pike looks on the screen is just more what I pictured. maybe it's the dresses, and that, it could just be the different, slightly different style of dresses. Because even the
Mhm.
Regency dresses are also kind of severe looking.
Right.
They're not as like feminine, I guess, not
Yeah.
as pretty. Yeah.
Wow, that is interesting that we finally have a character we agree on.
Yes.
So speaking of Jane and her partner, Charles Bingley is played by, in the show, Crispin Bonham Carter, and then in the
Hmm.
movie is played by Simon Woods. But honestly, I feel like these are the same people.
You do?
Yeah,
I love Crispin Bonham Carter. I think he's so adorable.
I
He's
think they both are. Like I really, and I feel
Yeah,
like they look so similar that I
yeah,
don't like. It's hard for me to tell them apart, honestly.
yeah. They do look alike. I don't know. I think he Simon Woods just comes off more like goofy and
Goofy,
almost like
yes.
goofy and kind of like
Airheaded.
aloof.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
And he's not supposed to be aloof. He's just supposed to be charming and, amiable is the word in the book to describe Bingley over and over again. So
I
he's just
can see
supposed to be
that.
kind and amiable. So what did we send each other? Golden retriever. He's the golden retriever, right? He's the
Yes.
golden retriever in in the story. So
Yes. I
yeah,
think
I
they
don't have
both
a
like,
problem with
I
Simon
can
Woods.
totally
Yeah,
see what you're saying about how Simon Woods is a little bit more goofy than
yeah,
Crispin's adaptation, but, I really couldn't I think they both did such a good job for Bingley, just making him the little sweetheart, but now that I'm
yeah.
thinking about it, you are right, 'cause I'm thinking of a scene, I think it's when Jane is sick in bed and Elizabeth goes over, and Simon Wood's portrayal of Bingley is just so, like, not with it, like, not understanding the dynamics of what his sister's kind of doing in the scene.
Yeah.
And he's just such, like, a hopeless romantic. It's so sweet, though.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with Simon Woods.
Yeah.
I just, yeah, it was a little too goofy
I
for
can
me, but
totally see that for
it
sure.
wasn't enough to bother me. Like it didn't bother me watching. Like him and Jane in the movie, I'm
We're
fine.
a
Like
really
I
good pairing,
watch
yeah.
that all day long. Yeah.
I know, me too. Okay, 180 here, going from the sweet,
Yes,
sweet Charles Bingley to George Wickham.
Mr.
In the
Wickham.
show, played by Adrian Lucas, and in the movie, played by Rupert Friend.
Mhm. Well, you don't see Rupert Friend enough to really even get to form an opinion of him.
Okay,
I mean, I just don't think he's so important to the book, and he was totally underwritten in the movie.
I can see that.
So that bothers me more than anything. And I mean, he's handsome, he's smooth, like he's believable, I think, for the little bit that you see him. But I think again, I'm gonna have to go with the BBC. I think he's manipulative, believable as being manipulative. He is still charismatic enough um, to convince you,
Yeah.
I think it's believable that he's able to deceive Elizabeth.
And I will say,
Yeah.
as a movie only watcher previously, I don't think it's a bad thing. Like, because you are condensed to only 2 hours, and I think you get enough of his character through his acting and through some other, like, discourse between the other characters, to understand his importance in the story. I do. But I can see what I can see what you're saying based on the book, having read the book now and seeing the show, how they did cut so much of his story out. But I don't think, like, if you were to only to see the film like I previously had, I don't think
Yeah.
you are confused at all. I don't think you're um, you
Yeah.
know, w- like, I think they did enough to like to have the main parts of that story still have an impact.
Yeah. Yeah. It's not, I don't think I don't think you get confused. You still get it, but I think the like depth of the situation and how much he really played into the outcome
Mhm.
of Elizabeth and Darcy's end
Mhm.
result is not there.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think
Yeah.
you're not able to understand how deep he is in that plot through the movie.
Yeah.
But I guess but like you said, without knowing the book, maybe it's not, it doesn't bother you because you just don't even know what you don't know.
Right. I did
Yeah.
appreciate getting like the flashbacks in the show and seeing a
Uh-huh.
little more
Yeah.
about that. I did appreciate that.
Yeah. I like how
But
they do that.
yeah. So Mr. Collins is next. In the show, played by David Bamber, and in the movie, played by Tom Hollander.
Yes.
I think both did a really great job of playing this really creepy cousin.
Yeah. So it's funny. I agree. I like them both for different reasons. Um, but in the book, he's not really creepy. He's not even described as being short. So it's interesting that both he's supposed to be tall and kind of overweight is how they describe him when he first comes in. So it's interesting that both of the adaptations chose to make him this short, tiny, creepy guy.
Yeah.
Because it's not, I mean, that's just something they played up in the, I guess, to visually,
Hmm.
have a contrast between him and Darcy. I think in the movie there's when he goes over to introduce himself to Darcy during the ball and he goes up behind him and he's standing behind him and he's like this big and Darcy's like
Yes.
towering above him. So it is funny just to see the contrast in their size. Um yeah, I slightly, again, I think I slightly like David Bamber better. I think he's more cringy.
Hmm.
Um he's definitely a little bit more cringy for me, but
Yeah, well, yeah, I think they're both pretty cringy if I'm remembering correctly, but I think Tom Hollander is just such a well-known actor, at least for me, because I still don't really know, besides Colin Firth, a lot of these actors. Um, I think I recognized Allison Steadman, but I couldn't tell
Mhm.
you what she was in, not like some of these other movie characters.
Right, right.
Um, so Charlotte Lucas is next.
Mhm.
Lucy Scott plays her in the show, and in the movie, she is played by Claudie Blakely.
Mhm. I like both of them. Again, neither one of them really stands out to me more than the other. I think Claudie Blakely maybe is again just from a what do I picture in my head? I think she's more what I picture Charlotte Lucas to look like. She's supposed to be plain and simple, and I
Yes.
think Lucy Scott is actually she's like really pretty and cute, and like it doesn't make as much sense to me, I guess, as Claudie Blakely. They're just the way it all looks on screen,
Hmm.
but I don't know. They're both, and I didn't mind either of them how they portrayed her.
Yeah,
I
I
think
think
they both did a good job.
exactly. I think there's nothing that stands out either way for her character, but um, I mean, and she's just a side character.
Yeah,
I mean, she's Lizzie's best friend, but there's not much arc, I guess, for her.
yeah,
Other than marrying Mr. Collins at the end of the day, just so she would have a marriage. There's not much arc for her. So
yeah,
not much for them to do with the character anyway. Okay, so the last character we have, I didn't do all of the Bennets, of course, we would be here
yeah.
all night, but I did of course need to talk about Lydia Bennet because she does have an integral part to the story. In the show, she was played by Julia Sawala,
Lava. Yeah.
and
Hmm.
then in the movie, played by Jenna Malone.
Yeah. Um, Again, I like them both. I same vibe I was getting from Keira Knightley being a little too modern and like over the top with her like rebelliousness. I think just felt more modern to me with Jenna Malone. So I think Julia came off as being more like
Hmm.
childish than like a modern rebellion situation. So yeah, but I think they're both giddy and annoying, and I think they both did a good job.
So I will say Jenna Malone is the one character in the movie. Even when I first watched the movie, I didn't like her performance. And I like Jenna Malone. She's been in a lot of stuff that I
Yeah,
do like her
yeah,
performance in. But I think saying over the top is really accurate for her. And like, yes, Lydia is supposed to be, but
yeah,
there's just something with Jenna's performance never really sat with me and it always took me out of it. So I did like Julia's performance a lot more. As soon as she started becoming a bigger character in the show, I was drawn to her character as opposed to Jenna's and I already knew that I would prefer her performance over
yeah,
Jenna's.
yeah. I think she's iconic in that role. I think like there's certain when we're talking about them, I picture in my head first, like who do I think of first? And I think of her first in my head. It's like, and I think of Jane.
Yes,
Why?
Rosamund Pike.
Why? Yeah, I think of Rosamund Pike first, like when I say Jane in my head.
Mhm.
So yeah, I think that Julia is the one that I picture first when it comes to Lydia's character.
Yes. Yeah. Um, that's interesting. I thinking about who we picture first. If we go with that route, I would say Matthew Macfadyen is my Mr. Darcy because it is who I picture first. But again, I think that's only because he has been the only Mr. Darcy for so long for me. So I'll have to
Yeah,
watch
that
the
makes sense.
BBC version
Yeah.
more times and then really define who is my Mr. Darcy.
You have a lot of people on your team, Sarah-Daye. There's a lot of people that don't like Colin Firth as Darcy or prefer Matthew Macfadyen over Colin
I
Firth.
would
So,
say, I mean, it's gotta be 50-50. There's a lot of people that like Colin. So
oh yeah, yeah.
yeah, it's a fun debate for sure. Okay, so before we wrap up episode 1, tell me what were your initial thoughts? Which was a more faithful adaptation and or a bold reimagining, or did they both do well in their own rights?
I mean, there's definite one is definitely a reimagining and one is definitely faithful for me. But that's not to say that they don't both have value. Like I actually enjoyed watching the movie more recently than I did when I first saw it. I have to say, I haven't watched the movie in a very long time. I watched it a couple of months ago. I watched it again a couple of weeks ago in preparation for talking about it. But it used to really bother me thinking about the movie. And this time I think I noticed more of like the cinematography and the music and how it's just a really beautiful film and it's
Yes.
enjoyable. If I can take away the problems I have with like the things they left out of the plot or the quotes that I wanted to hear Mr. Darcy say,
Right.
if I can set aside those expectations, I think that the movie it's enjoyable. That's why a lot of people love it. So I did enjoy it, but for being faithful to as an Austen lover, somebody who actually loves the book and the way she
Mhm.
writes, and I have a locket with one of the quotes that Darcy says that I
Oh.
wore for like years and years in my bedside drawer. I don't wear it anymore, but it's the quote, "You must allow me to tell you how ardently I admire and love you." And
Mhm.
he doesn't say that in the movie. And like in that scene, I'm like, say it, and he doesn't say it. So I don't know. I think looking for faithfulness to the book and hearing the dialogue come to life that I love so much in
Mhm.
the book. Obviously, I have to go with the BBC, but I did enjoy watching the movie this time, and I think I get it more now than I did before. Why people like that one?
Yeah, and that's exactly how I, after finishing the BBC, would summarize the two adaptations is that if you want a faithful adaptation to the book, you watch the BBC version. But if you just want a fun, beautiful film, then you watch the 2005 version.
Yeah, and if honestly, I love that the movie inspires people to go and read want to read the
Mhm.
book. So
Yeah.
if that's what it does, then I can love it for that too because I think it does make people want
Yes.
to go and read it. Yeah.
Yes. Well, I'm excited to compare the next adaptation with you because I do have some worries about it.
Yeah.
But again, I think it's a show, so we'll get more content than the film at least.
Yeah, well, that's the other thing. I mean, we didn't talk about that. Just timing wise, obviously there's going to be
Yeah.
things that have to get cut out. So, and that became less of an issue for me this time around. Just having that in mind, like they didn't have 6
Right.
hour long episodes to do
Yep.
it, so they had to
Something's
make
gonna have to
choices.
go. Mhm.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I think honestly, and we'll get more into this in the next episode when we talk about the key plot points, but I really do think the film hit those key plot points. And you'll have to let me know when we get into it next week what if there's anything glaring that was left out of the film.
sounds good.
All right. Well, listeners, you will have to join us next week as we get into the nitty gritty of the story and the key plot points. Until then, well, Krista, is there anything you would like to share with the listeners? Anything about you want to share about your bookshop? Maybe follow your bookshop.
Sure, yeah, we can do that. That's where you asked me to be on the podcast. So yeah, we back in the fall we opened up a mobile bookshop here where we live in Williamsburg, Virginia. So if you're local, you have to come check it out. We have a very curated, awesome collection of mostly used books, including lots of classics and award-winning literature, and a huge history section and a huge children's book section. And I also carry new copies of, trending books, and then also new unique copies of classics. Like I always have unique versions of Pride and Prejudice there that are new, and full covers, or pretty illustrations in them. So yeah, so we right now we just go to our second Sunday market here in our town. So the second Sunday of every month, we are downtown all day long from 11 to 4, and we are peddling our books. And
Yes, and
my
what's it
daughter
called?
Izzy, it's called the Wordsmith. We have an Instagram if you want to follow us. It's just at the Wordsmith Bookshop. And yeah, and you can if you come, my daughter Izzy runs most of the shop at this point. So she will be helping you find a book, convincing you to buy a book, and then checking you out.
Yes, we love Lizzie. Okay, well, thank you for joining me today, and we will see you next week, listeners. That's a wrap for today's episode of Book Watch. I hope you enjoyed this journey into the world of page-to-screen adaptations. If you loved today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, review wherever you listen to podcasts, and share it with your fellow book and movie lovers. If you'd prefer to watch along, you can check the show out on YouTube. You can follow the show on Instagram at Bookwatch Podcast, and you can follow me, Sarah-Daye, on Instagram at captain.mcdee. That's MCDEE. You can also join the conversation in the Bookwatch Lounge on Facebook at www.facebook.com/groups/bookwatchlounge. If you would like to support the podcast, you can join the Patreon at www.patreon.com/bookwatchpodcast. Tiers start at only $4 a month, and I'd love to have you over there. If you have a favorite adaptation you'd like to cover with me, I'd love for you to apply to be on the show with the contact form on our website at www.bookwatchpodcast.com. Until next time, keep reading, keep watching, and I'll see you next week.